All right. Welcome, everyone, to Jared's 5 tools for cultivating indestructible resilience. I'm so honored to introduce Jared. I know everyone on this call is a huge Jared fan. I've gotten to work with Jared for about 7 years now here at NAMI Westside LA with our peer programming. Jared leads 3 groups a week for us and our weekly game night, in addition to being a peer teacher and ending the silence presenter. And he has also hosted for us and talked many times on his 5 building blocks of resilience. And he also, of recovery, excuse me, Jared, sorry. And he also has his mental health podcast, 5 building blocks of recovery. I'll put the link in the chat for both Apple and Spotify. But if you're interested in listening to Jared's podcast, we also, I know, had many folks from NAMI Westside LA that he invited on. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it to you, Jared, so that we can go ahead and hear your wonderful program.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you everybody for taking your time on a Monday evening. You could be doing many things with your time, and you being here tonight really means a lot to me. So thank you for that. And without further ado, we're just gonna jump right in. So, all right. So today I'm going to be presenting on my 5 tools for cultivating indestructible resilience. When I When I say the word resiliency, what comes to mind for you? When I say the word resiliency, what comes to mind for you? Maybe you're thinking about a time in your life that was really difficult that you overcame. Maybe you're thinking about somebody that you admire, whether real or fictional, who walked the hero's journey and overcame incredible odds. Or maybe you're thinking about something you are going through right now in your life that requires you to be resilient. But I would bet that everybody in this room, no matter who you are and no matter where you come from, that you've had things happen in your life that require resiliency. Tonight in this room with everybody, we have people in recovery from a mental health condition. We may even have people with family members who are in recovery. And we have people who may not be in recovery, but who have gone through obstacles and challenges in their lives. Resiliency, according to, and I did not memorize this quote, resiliency, according to the American Psychological Association, is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external, and internal demands. That's a very long quote about resiliency, but I'd like to share with you a couple of inspirational quotes, which I, of course, found on ChatGPT. The first quote is a Japanese proverb: fall 7 times, stand up 8. The second quote is from the Chinese philosopher Confucius, who said, our greatest glory is not in never failing, is not in never falling, but in rising every single time we fall. Life is hard, things happen to us, we're going to have obstacles, we're going to have challenges, and it's not about being perfect. It's not about whether we never fall down. It's about how we get up when we fall down and how we choose to never give up on ourselves. Tonight, I'm going to be sharing with you my 5 tools for cultivating indestructible resilience. But before that, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my story. When I was a child, when I was a toddler, I was diagnosed with high functioning autism. After learning how to talk, I became nonverbal again, and I had to go to speech therapy. Fast forward to middle school and high school, I had really, really heavy social anxiety to the point that it was very, very, very difficult for me to connect with my classmates. And this affected my self-esteem. This made me feel very sad, made me feel very lonely and overwhelmed. And the anxiety was a lot to cope with. Back then, this was a long time ago. I'm not going to age myself here, but let's just say it was a long time ago. And back then, mental health was not being talked about the way that mental health is being talked about now and in the last half decade. So I had to think that I was going through so many mental health symptoms, but I had no idea the two words mental and health actually went together, that mental and health could go together in a sentence. There was a counselor at my high school, but back then, with my thinking as a teenager, my impression was that the counselor was for classmates if they were drinking too much beer or they had substance use struggles. So I never reached out for help. As a result, I really suffered in silence and I did my best to be resilient. And the ways that I managed to be resilient, the ways that I managed to adapt to my external circumstances, which were difficulties connecting with other classmates and feeling alone, and internal circumstances, feeling a lot of anxiety and a lot of low self-worth. I was able to adapt as best as I could at that age by journaling. I would come home at night as a middle schooler, turn on my computer, open Microsoft Word, and literally just type all of my thoughts, my feelings, just getting everything out. And it was a way for me to process the world and make meaning out of my experiences. That was how I practiced resiliency at a young age. Then, in around 11th grade, we were allowed to leave campus once we finished our classes. And so I took advantage of that opportunity. And as soon as classes were done, I would go back home and I started going to the gym to work out. I put on over 18 months, my junior and senior year of high school, I put on over 30 pounds of muscle. And it gave me something to do and something to focus on. And because of the muscle and because of the discipline and because of the drive and the determination, it actually helped me to lower my anxiety. And it released endorphins in my brain, which actually helped me to start making connections at school. Journaling and gym were my ways of being resilient at a young age. Unfortunately, the psychological impact of lack of connection with my classmates, the psychological impact of feeling so different, the psychological impact of not being able to have positive friendships and relationships with people, and the impact that that had on my nervous system, the impact that that had on my self-esteem, were things that I did not have resiliency for at the time. So I pushed it all down, deep down, and I dissociated from it, and I did the best I could to get by. My next chapter in resiliency was I said, you know what? I want to create a new identity for myself. I'm going to go to a college that not a single person in my high school is going to. So I did. I went to a UC school where the only person from my graduating class in high school that was going to that school was me. And it was a chance for me to create a new identity and have a fresh start. Sometimes resiliency, if we're in a bad environment, if we're in an environment that isn't conducive to our well-being, we move to a different environment. That was my way of adapting. College was overall a pretty good experience. I had a girlfriend, some friends, did well academically. I was a part of two Buddhist clubs on campus. And overall, I had a decent experience. But I didn't have the tools, I didn't have the resiliency to make sense of my dysregulated nervous system, to heal my anxiety, to look at the low self-worth. It was just too much and too intense for me at that age. College finishes. I want nothing to do with my major. I come back to my childhood home and I lived there for 3 years after college. And during this time, I became extremely hopeless, extremely socially isolated. I developed an eating disorder and I became very suicidal, which all culminated in me spending 50 days at a psychiatric hospital in 2015 and 4.5 months at a residential recovery program. For those in the audience who may not know what a residential is, it's basically the highest level of care that people in recovery from mental health condition can find, where they actually live in a house and they have 24-hour supervision and 24-hour treatment of their symptoms so that they can slowly build their lives back. My version of resiliency at that residential was just stay locked in, stay focused, and take things one day at a time. It was take my medication, go to support groups, eat 3 healthy meals a day, and use my free time productively to either study Japanese or take the bus or do something else fun. Back then, resiliency was as simple as stay focused, take it one day at a time, and that was the best way that I could adapt because I did not know anything about my future. After the residential, and by the way, for some, I, resiliency can also be go to the AA meeting, call your sponsor, and don't drink. Sometimes resiliency is very simple. Sometimes the adaptations that are required of us are very simple. Anyways, after the residential, I came back to Los Angeles, and from 2016 to 2019, I got an associate's degree and a master's degree. And then in 2020, I became involved with NAMI West LA. And then as a peer support group facilitator, and I've been a mental health advocate with NAMI West LA since 2020. I developed my 5 building blocks of recovery over the last several years. And then my 5 tools to cultivating indestructible resilience is something new, is a new piece of programming that I just started developing. The 5 tools of recovery, or the 5 tools for cultivating indestructible resilience are, we're just going to jump in. Number 1, celebrating your victories and your joys, no matter how large or small. And by the way, if you do have paper or pen, I forgot to mention that. I would definitely encourage you to write things down. Number two, Number 2 is having a self-care plan. Number 3 is staying present. Number 4 is trusting in your life, trusting in the process of your life. And number 5 is finding your why, finding your meaning. Elizabeth, if you could put those 5 in the chat for folks, that would be great. Let's jump in. The first tool is celebrating your victories and your joys, no matter how large or small. For those in recovery, which is some of us in this room, and honestly, even for those in this room who aren't in recovery from mental health condition, we all go through obstacles and challenges in our life. We all experience setbacks. And for those in recovery especially, recovery is a long-term process that can take years and years and years and decades to explore ourselves, to get to know ourselves, to become self-aware, to understand our traumas and our triggers and our obstacles and our challenges. For those not in recovery, it can take years and years and years to actualize our dreams, to work towards our goals, to work on ourselves and dedicate ourselves to personal growth, that we are a ready vessel to invite in that soulmate, or to have the friends that we desire, or to find that perfect career. No matter who you are and where you are in life, things take time. And sometimes, in my experience, when things don't happen fast enough, as human beings, and especially for those in recovery, it can be easy to fall into what I don't like to call it this, but I find it appropriate. It can be easy to fall into existential despair. Nothing is happening. I'm trying my best, but nothing in my life is changing. And that is why it's so important that we consciously and consistently make a point of celebrating our victories and our joys in life, no matter how small. Maybe, maybe that's as simple as you had a nice cup of warm chamomile tea last night after dinner. Maybe it means you sat down with a friend and you watched the sunset at Palisades Park in Santa Monica, for example. Maybe you overcame, maybe you finally understood the root of a trigger or a trauma that you've been experiencing. Whatever it may be, maybe you spent 30 minutes today as an entrepreneur working on your business. uninterrupted 30 minutes, whatever it is. These are the small things that happen to us every day that it's so important to celebrate and to focus on, because then it tells ourselves, it tells our mind that we're not stuck. We are moving forward and that we have things to celebrate. So I would invite you sometime this week to take time to write down your victories and your joys from that day, or to simply celebrate your accomplishments and remind yourself that those little moments of joy, of positivity, they count for something. First tool for cultivating indestructible resilience is celebrating your victories and your joys, no matter how large or small. So Elizabeth, if you could put that first one in the chat. All right, number two, having a self-care plan. And this actually comes from my second building block of recovery, having a self-care plan. No need to recreate the wheel, right? A lot of us, if we're going to a party or a social engagement, we spend at least an hour in the bathroom, right? Showering, grooming, putting on the right clothes, getting ready. And a lot of us are willing to spend 3 hours watching a Love is Blind marathon on Netflix or something else that we love on Netflix. So if we can spend 3 hours watching Love is Blind on Netflix, or in my case, my guilty pleasure recently has been Singles Inferno, which is this Korean reality TV show where they pick the most good-looking Korean men and women, put them on an island for 8 days, and watch all the flirting and the magic that happens. If I can spend 3 to 4 hours straight watching Singles Inferno, and you can spend 3 to 4 hours straight watching Love is Blind, or you can spend 3 to 4 hours getting ready for a social engagement or a party, I think we can all spend the time to practice self-care. I'm going to share with you three important tenets of practicing self-care. The first one is actually coming up with a self-care plan. You know, a lot of us sit down with a financial advisor and we look at how much we have and our budget and everything else, and we come up with a plan for saving up for retirement. Well, you can do the same thing with your mental health. Even if you don't have a mental health condition, we all have mental health. And that's something I learned from Ending the Silence. Thank you, Elizabeth. And so what this means is you write down the different parts of self-care for you: spiritual, intellectual, emotional, financial, physical, etc., etc., etc. And you come up with a couple different tools, a couple of different things that you can do to take care of those parts of you every single day. And then you commit it to memory, and then you start making an effort to practice self-care every day. The second part is having self-care tools that you can use when you're in a crisis or when you're super, super, super stressed out. And this is important because whether you have a mental health condition or not, we all get stressed out. We all have things happen to us that require us to be resilient. So maybe this is calling a friend, or maybe this is calling a warm line. Maybe this is, in my case, sending a text at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night to my therapist, or recording a voice memo, taking a walk and recording a voice memo and sending it to my sister all the way in Europe. Or maybe this is reaching out to someone else in my life and saying, hey, can we meet up sometime soon? Whatever it is, you need to have some go-to tools that you can use to practice resilience when your resiliency is being tested. So having coping skills to use when in distress is essential. And finally, the last part of having a self-care plan is having just one non-negotiable self-care tool. If resiliency is about helping us when we fall down to stand back up, if resiliency is about mental and emotional and behavioral flexibility and adaptation to internal and external demands, imagine how helpful it can be if you have that. You know, a lot of basketball players, right? They have that go-to move. They have that go-to shot that they use all the time. Well, this is like your go-to shot in basketball. That one thing that you can always rely on, day or night. It doesn't matter whether it's a Monday or a Sunday. You know that it's there for you. This might be surfing a couple times a week for those who love the water. This might be going to the gym and just working off your stress. And for me, it's journaling. When I journaling is the main way that I restore a sense of balance and harmony within myself. It's the main way that I practice resiliency on a day-to-day basis. And I'll talk about journaling more. The point being, it's really important to have just one non-negotiable self-care tool. And if you don't have one, try a couple things until you find something. So again, the second tool for cultivating indestructible resilience is having a self-care plan. And Elizabeth, if you can write that down, put that down in the chat. All right, tool number 3. And I hope you guys are still with me. Are you guys still with me? All right, cool. Tool number 3 is staying present. Now, when I say staying present, you must know that I don't mean meditating like a Buddha in a cave. I don't mean chanting Om Mani Padme Om 5,000 times and reaching a state of enlightenment. I don't mean being a spiritual master. I just mean realizing that this is the only moment that you have and asking yourself in the present moment, what is just one action step I can take to practice resilience, to help me bounce back from whatever obstacles I'm going through? What is one thing right now in this moment that I can do to move my life forward and to feel slightly better? Now, you might try option A. You know, what was that game show? I think it was not Jeopardy, but there was another game show where there were 3 doors, and behind one door was like a goat, and another door was a goat, and another door was like some huge prize. Well, sometimes you have to try a couple different things before you find the right thing. But if door number A doesn't work, if you try something to feel better, to practice resilience, and door number A doesn't work, you move on to door number B. And if door number B doesn't work, you move on to door number C. And I guarantee you that if you keep, when you're feeling stressed, when you need to find a way to practice resilience, when your world is bringing you challenges, if you just say, okay, what can I do this is the question to ask yourself. What can I do in this moment that can help me to feel better, that can help me to feel more resilient? And then you go into your self-care tool bag, for example, and you try something until you find something that works. So it's all about staying present, acknowledging this moment, and doing whatever you can to move forward. And sometimes this can happen at any time of the day. This could be 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and you get stressed out about something, and you have to figure out, what can I do right now to practice resilience? And for those of us in the room with a mental health condition, sometimes the best thing that I tell myself is, I am feeling crappy today. I'm just going to go to sleep and wake up and start the next day anew. And it's like a reset. It's like a reset button. So tool number 3 is staying present. Let's review all 5 tools for cultivating indestructible resilience. Tool number 1, celebrating your victories and your joys, no matter how large or small. Tool number 2 is having a self-care plan. Tool number 3 is staying present. And then we're about to go into tool number 4 and 5, which is trusting in your life and finding your why. Tool number 4, which is trusting in your life. Now, I kind of have like a love-hate relationship with this in terms of trust, but this goes back to that sense of existential despair that we all go through sometimes, where we just feel like our efforts aren't leading to anything, or we feel like the triggers are too heavy, the trauma is too heavy, the overwhelm is too much. This is about recognizing that if the best thing that you can do is have the guts to never give up on yourself. It doesn't matter if you've fallen down 7 times, you get up 8. It doesn't matter if you've been knocked down, you rise up again because you believe in yourself and you believe in your dreams and your goals. And you trust that you may not know. And I would bet that we've all been put in this position before. You may not know how things are going to get better, but if you can trust that somehow they will get better, if you can trust that if you practice self-care, that if you stay present, if you do all these things, that eventually you will feel better, that is what trusting in life looks like. That is what trusting in recovery looks like. That's what trusting in the process of life looks like. You may be able to now look back on your life. In fact, I would invite you to do this sometime this week. Look back on your life. Look back at a particularly difficult time of your life when you were younger and you had to practice resiliency. Look back at that time period and see how things eventually actually worked out for you. And then bring that memory to the present moment and apply it for whatever you're going through in your life today. And remind yourself that if you could get through what you went through at that particular time 10 years ago, you can get through what you're going through today. And one day, you're going to be able to look back 10 years from now, you're going to be able to look back on 2026 and go, how the heck did I get through that? How in the world did I manage to do that? And that's what trusting in your life is about. It's about trusting that you may not have the answers right now. You may not know how you're going to get from point A to point Z. But if you choose to never give up on yourself, if you choose to hold a vision for yourself and for your life, even if you can't quite articulate that vision in words, if you choose to trust, and if you choose to practice resilience on a micro scale every single day, you will achieve your dreams and your goals, or you will recover, or you will achieve success in your mental health recovery journey. So tool number 4 is trusting in your life. Elizabeth, if you could put that in the chat. And finally, tool number 5 is finding your why, finding your meaning. This is probably my favorite tool for cultivating indestructible resilience. This is about what is your why in life? Now, some people in the audience tonight are in recovery, and some people aren't in recovery. But this applies for everyone. What is your why in life? If you're in recovery, what is your why for why you want to get better? Why you're going to therapy? Why you're going to support groups? Why you have a sponsor? Why you're putting all the effort in to get better? And if you're not in recovery, but you have dreams and goals in your life, what is your why? What is it you want to achieve? What would achieving that thing mean to you? What is your why? And that why is going to change depending on who you are and what stage of life you're in. For those in recovery, as I mentioned when I was telling my story earlier, when I was at my residential program, the why was nothing more than I just want to get stable. I never want to feel the way that I felt for 3 solid years living at my childhood home after college, hopeless, depressed, anxious, suicidal. I never wanted to go back to that place. My why when I was at a residential program in recovery was keep my head down and just get stable and focus on one day at a time. But then later on, and my why now has changed. My why now is I want to become a powerful, impactful mental health advocate and speaker. I want to take my lived experience and I want to impact the lives of millions and millions of people one day. So where are you? What stage are you in your life? And what is your why? I would invite you as well this week to take some time to reflect on that. To reflect on that and ask yourself, what is your why right now? What stage of life are you in right now? And what is your why? Because if you have a why, if you have a bigger reason for doing what you do and for being who you are, it's like it is the most impactful tool for practicing resiliency that you could potentially have. And finally, finding meaning out of your experiences. I talked about existential despair earlier. There are so many people in human history that have gone through horrible, horrible, horrible things. And I would wager that every single person in this room has gone through things that have broken them, that have challenged them, and that have opened them up. And it's about finding meaning from your experiences and believing that everything that you're going through has a deeper meaning. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, if he hadn't chosen to find meaning from his experiences, maybe he wouldn't have gone through. Maybe he wouldn't have made it. For other people, if they didn't choose to find meaning from their experiences, they never would have gotten to where they am today. My favorite tool for meaning creation is actually journaling. Now, a lot of people talk about journaling in terms of getting your emotions out and your thoughts out. I don't know if you've read that advice where it says you're trying to process something, and so write your emotions and thoughts in a journal, crumple up the piece of paper, and either toss it in the trash can or burn it up, and it's symbolic of you letting go and releasing that which does not serve you, which is great, which is fine. But I'm talking about something else. For me, when I journal, and I journal every single night of my life, it's a way of creating meaning out of my experiences. The fact that I put pen to paper, or in my case, typing on Microsoft Word, it makes me feel like every day of my life is part of the autobiography of who I've been, who I am, and who I'm becoming. So, in whatever way that works best for you, making meaning out of your experiences is an incredible way to practice resilience because it makes us believe that what we're going through is part of a larger story of your life. It's almost as if it's almost as if everybody in this room is going to eventually write a book about their lives so that they can inspire other people. So if you were to, I would invite you to consider the practice of journaling as a way of creating meaning. All right, so let's review the 5 tools for cultivating indestructible resilience. Tool number one, celebrating your victories and your joys, no matter how large or small. Tool number 2, having a self-care plan. Tool number 3, staying present. Tool number 4, trusting in your life. And tool number 5, finding your why, finding your meaning. Resiliency, the practice of resiliency, sometimes comes down to the smallest of moments every day. It's in those moments at 10:37 p.m. on a random Wednesday night when we get a triggering text or something happens to our computer or something bad happens. It's in those moments when we're struggling at the most random of times that we need to practice resilience. It's in those moments when instead of reaching for a cigarette or a beer or a piece of cake, instead of doing that, we go to the gym. Well, if it's 10:37 p.m., I wouldn't suggest wasting your time driving all the way to the gym only to find out that they're closed, unless you go to 24-hour fitness. Going to the gym. So resiliency is about those small choices where instead of reaching for cake, you go to the gym or you pull out your journal or you text your friend or you do something else to practice self-care and to help you feel better, something that's going to help you in the long run. Resiliency is also about choosing to believe in that when you make those small positive choices, you are saying yes to some vision that you have for yourself and your life, even if you can't quite articulate that vision. Resiliency is about having the guts to never, ever, ever give up on yourself and to believe in who you are as a person. Resiliency is about accepting that life is not perfect and life is going to have its ups and downs. But if you choose to believe in yourself, if you pick yourself up every time you fall down, you will be able to achieve your dreams and goals, and you will, for those in the room with a mental health condition, I believe you will succeed in recovery. Remember, you are worthy, you are lovable, you are amazing, you are courageous, and you will get through anything that you're getting through in this moment. Maybe you need some support. You don't have to do it alone, but you will get through. And sometimes resiliency is also about just saying, I need help, I need support, but I know that I'm worthy of that support. So use the 5 tools for cultivating indestructible resilience. And remember, no matter who you are, where you come from, there is hope and you can achieve your wildest goals and your dreams. Thank you.
Jared, I hope you're seeing all of the round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
That
you.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to invite folks to the Q&A section. If anyone has any questions for Jared after his talk or comments, if you're open to that, Jared.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yes, Mary.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Jared, every day I am more and more, when I hear you speak, more and more inspired by what you have achieved and what you have accomplished. That was an excellent, absolutely excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. 100% agree. Jefferson, I see your hands up.
Yeah, it was okay. No, I'm kidding. I just want to echo what Mary said. First of all, oh my God, I was taking all kinds of notes. But Jared, as I've told you in the past, you have such gravitas because you have lived experience. We say lived experience in NAMI all the time, but you are a warrior and an insightful, you articulate your the things that we aspire to. And you give me hope. I think anybody who has lived experience, hope in that there are things to still do, even when you're feeling completely overwhelmed with your mental health journey. Um, there's a few things that mentioning Viktor Frankl, of course, huge. I mean, I love his book, A Man's Search for Meaning, and I think that's where you were going with that, finding your why and your meaning. Um, I just want to go back over a few of these, some of the notes, and I'll make it brief so I don't completely bogart the whole conversation. But um, celebrating your victories, even if they're small, I mean, of course, that's great to do. And it's just what a great reminder to do that. I love the title, Indestructible Resiliency, meaning resiliency is always, if we give ourselves over to it, I'm just telling my perspective, that it actually is indestructible. It is something you can always rely on. And I'm a big fan of the word resiliency, the fact that you're working through that, and that was your title, because all we have is that we can't go back to in our past and change anything. All we've got is now, which is another point you made. And being here in the present, don't we say that when we facilitate as a peer support group leader? Keep it in the here and now. It doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge, and you did this beautifully, we acknowledge the pain, we acknowledge the fight, but as you said, we're worth it. And this is something I try to always remind folks in my support groups, and trusting in your life. When I saw that as a bullet point, I was like, I don't know if I trust my life. I'm not really happy all the time, and I'm not sure my life is worth it, blah, blah, blah. Not blah, 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 but for me, it's like I can go down that existential despair route, rabbit hole easily, easily. But you very kindly gave me permission to feel my feelings, but don't live there. Don't stay there. There's more. There's actually more. So acknowledging where I'm at, but then don't forget to aspire to more. Yeah. So again, I don't want to keep talking. I could talk a lot more, but I really appreciate your insights and the power of your presentation. Obviously, I think I'm a fan, and I think you're really good at this, and thank you. So there, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank
And I'm
you.
very inspired, very moved, and thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth, should I also answer the question in the chat and then we'll go to the next person?
Yes, let's answer Mandy's and then Tom will come to you next.
Awesome. Oh, and take care, Merlot. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so like I'm a fan of journaling for 5 billion different reasons. And I actually use Microsoft Word, so I type because I'm a fast typer. So I can get a lot more out than I do on paper. But everybody has their own preference. But for me, sometimes it's like reflections about life or what happened in the day. You know, sometimes it's more focused, but a lot of time it's like a way for me to create meaning. And as I shared in the speech, it's like if I get it all down onto a journal, it feels like it meant something in the grand scale. So sometimes it's just whatever stood out to me from that day. Sometimes it's like a way for me to actually get out what I think were the moments of progress from the day to make them feel real. Because if I don't write them down, it's easy to lose them and not believe in them. So it's really your canvas and your space. You can write down your accomplishments. You can write down your joys. You can write down the hard stuff. You can type, whatever it is that stuck out to you about your day. It's a safe space to express anything you need to express because nobody's going to see it from but you. And I find using Microsoft Word, it's so much easier to keep track of stuff because it's just one file on a computer. You could have millions and millions of files versus a bound journal. You're going to have to find a place in your closet to keep all the bound journals. So it really is your canvas, but I love journaling as a way to, in a sense, make me believe that the moments of progress from the day were real because I write them down. Yeah.
I love that. The moments of progress are real because you write them down. Yeah. Thank you, Jared. And Tom, I want to go to your question next.
Jared, that was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. I thought you had 5 points, so it was enough to create some depth, and yet they were so well explained and they were succinct, and then you went into detail about each one. It was really, really well constructed. A lot of good points in there, like Elizabeth was just saying, some of the things you said. I couldn't write them all down so fast. I couldn't keep up with it because I'm not typing it, I'm writing out by hand. I'm an old school guy. Um, but yeah, trusting your life, staying present. I've learned to do that after you know about this, my near-death experience, that I live in today. It's the only thing I have is today. And I also do journaling. I really have found it to be a really, really worthwhile exercise to document that. And it's fun looking back and seeing what was I doing a year ago on this day? And so it was really, really well done. And I believe, my friend, that you will influence millions of people. Just keep at it. Thanks for sharing it with me and letting me come tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tom, for sharing. Does anyone else have any comments or questions for Jared?
I have a comment for Jared. I'm
Hi,
Yolanda.
Hey, Yolanda.
Thanks, Jared, for this presentation. And I can relate so much to the 5 tools because me, myself, that's what I do. And I never saw it as resilience, that it was helping me to be more resilient until I heard you a couple of times talk about it. And now looking back, it really helps you. Because when you do have, like for me back in December, there's anxiety out of nowhere. I believe all those 5 tools that I use really help me to recognize and be aware of what was happening and not get overwhelmed and not get overwhelmed and not have my brain override my thought, that I was actually listening to my body and I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. And I recognize it. And then immediately I was able to pivot to what is the next right step to do right now with what I have, because this is very scary. And this feeling is beyond scary. And go back to what is it that really helped you. And it's exactly what you just said, those 5 tools. The big one right there and then was rest. Just really rest and reset myself. That's all I can do at that time. But I truly believe is because I have been working, I have been practicing resilience by journaling, being mindful, exercising, celebrating the small wins, like everything that you just mentioned, the 5 tools. I have been doing that since I started doing personal growth in 2018. So thank you so much for this presentation, and to see how much these 5 tools really helps your resilience. And it does help with severe anxiety. You really condition yourself how to overcome when you get knocked down, especially that moment when you don't see a light and not even hope helps, but you're able to bounce right back. So thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Yolanda. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Yolanda. Millie.
This is great. I wanted to ask you, how would you succinctly share what your why or your vision statement is?
Oh, it makes me think of the peer-to-peer class. Um, mm, like my whys, I want to push forward because I want to feel like everything I've been through had greater meaning, and I want to make an impact. So I haven't I don't have it in terms of like a one sentence statement. It's just something that just sticks with me, like in my heart, is just wanting to make an impact as a speaker, as a mental health advocate, to I want to I believe that everybody with a mental health condition deserves to have a happy and successful life. Um, and that's kind of where I come from, is I want to help people in recovery to have a successful life and to be capable of happiness and success, and everything they dream of, and that it is possible. And so um, it's actually not something that I verbally say a lot, but it's just something that is within me, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I had a feeling you were going to say something like that, and clearly that does show, your why does show throughout the podcast and your shares. So thank you.
Thanks, Millie.
I love that question, Millie. Anyone else while we're all on together?
And maybe
Comments, questions. And then I also just want to share that in the chat, we have a feedback form with some questions up top from Jared that are specific to this presentation. Since it's a new one, I know Jared would love to get some feedback there. So if you would like to add some of the things you shared now or share some additional things, that would be a great place for it. And then you'll see right below it, coming up on March 2nd, Monday, 6:30, we'll be having a skill-based workshop that Jared developed for these same 5 tools.
so. Next Monday will be from 6:30 to 8 p.m. and I'm working on a PDF. I'm working on a PDF worksheet. So next Monday will really be about lively discussion, questions about resiliency to kind of get people's thought process going, and discussion and inspiring each other and sharing. And it's going to be it's not going to be about me talking a bunch. It's more going to be about brainstorming and helping people kind of think for themselves how they can apply the 5 tools, and having discussions and inspiring each other and sharing knowledge with each other. So would love to see you there next Monday. it's gonna be a lot more interactive than today. And then yeah, also the feedback form really helps me. This is literally my first time presenting on these 5 tools for cultivating resilience. This is something new that I created recently, and so any feedback really helps because I want to make it good. I want to make it better. And so any feedback at all really does help me on the back end. And so if you are able to provide some feedback on that form, it really goes a long way. But yeah, I think, I think with that said, I'm just really grateful that so many people showed up tonight. Thank you, everybody. We have people from NAMI, we have people from Westside Toastmasters, we have people from Friends Toastmasters. Thank you so much, everybody. And yeah, just thank you for taking a Monday evening a Monday evening to come and support and be here because without you guys here, I would just be talking to myself. So
Thank you so much, Jared. This was fantastic. And thank you all for coming. We hope to see you next Monday at 6:30.
thank you so much, everybody.
Have a
Great
great
job,
evening.
Jared.
Thank you. Bye,
Great
everybody.
job.
Thank you,
Great
Jared.
job.
Bye.